Okay, so here's how to be in business for the next 50 years, right? Because you meet a lot of riding instructors who somehow end up with a great group of high school kids that are riding really well, and it's like this great moment for their business, right? But then, right, how dare they go off to college and the business is kind of quiet. So to have a sustainable business for 50 years, you have to constantly be bringing in fresh blood into the sport. And it's great for the entire industry, I think, to be bringing in a new group of people. And so I highly suggest that everybody has a lesson horse and is marketing to people that are shopping for an after-school activity and considering between gymnastics, karate, and horseback riding. Okay. And so that is a huge market that most people are missing out on. And if you're only just waiting for that rider that already, has been introduced to horses and they understand the lay of the land, that's microscopic, right? And you see most riding instructors fighting over this client, right? When we need to kind of be creating new clients. And so your business should start with an advertisement to the general public, right? And you should be generating leads. So the first thing we want to look at is, are you generating leads, right? For every $10 you spend, you should get a lead. Somebody who puts their hand up and is like, hey, like I'm kind of interested in this horseback riding thing. Now comes, how much skill do you really have in turning that lead into maybe a paid intro lesson, right? So the first question I have for most people is, how many leads are you generating per month? What are you spending? And what is your cost per lead, right? And so the average riding instructor is like, what are you talking about, right? It's all like Greek to them. And then the second thing I want to know is what's your lead conversion rate? Like, what do you how many of these leads and what are you doing, right? And they're like, I'm just kind of waiting for things to happen. Like, I'm not doing anything. Like, what is your, what do your emails look like? What are your, how quickly are you to respond? Do you call? Do you have a team member call? Do you text? Do you Facebook message? Do you send them a guide? Do you do anything? And the answer is usually no, we don't do anything. First of all, we don't generate leads. We just wait for something to happen. And then secondly, when, if a lead does come in, it's just sort of like when I get free time, I'll give them a call, right? So we can, in 2024, you can do a lot to really nurture those leads, to have team members call those leads, to automate a lot of that process that has huge results. Now, the next thing is once they come for the first time, how many of those people are really signing on for a regular weekly lesson, right? And this can all be tracked. And then you want to know, well, what are you doing when they get there? What does that lesson structure look like? What does your packet look like? What does your presentation look like? How do you really show that to people? And then from there, we want to know, well, how many of them quit, right? What's your retention? How many of them kind of get hooked? And one of the most disappointing things I heard from talking to a riding instructor is that they told me that they have no impact on whether or not somebody really gets hooked and goes on to become a serious horse owner or whether they just quit, right? The amount of riding instructors that just let themselves off the hook completely, right? Because obviously some riding schools are going to be the place to be, and some of them are going to be terrible, right? And we call that retention, right? We call that retention. And specifically, when I look at these businesses, I want to know how many, and we can track all this. All this is trackable, and I'm going to give you the dashboard so you can start tracking all this. And if you tracked it all and you scheduled a meeting with my team, in about 2 minutes, they could look at it and give you some incredible insights. So I'll show you how to track all this, and I'll give you the spreadsheet, but I just want to give you the concept right now. Is then we want to know, like, how many of those kids quit and how many of them upgrade and start taking 2 lessons a week, right? And start moving towards horse ownership. And then, from there, that process, we kind of call it upgrade or die, because I have a theory that if you're not moving a relationship forward and it's not getting progressively more and more serious, then a lot of times it cancels. And we see this in romantic relationships, right? If it's not moving more forward, if it's not getting more serious, well, most of the time then you cancel. So if you're not going to sit down and have a goal setting meeting, and you're not going to really encourage them and let them know that, you know, there is a next option, and if you're not going to create those products, right? If all you offer is a weekly lesson, then people are just going to cancel, because there's no escalation. So people that are creating, just for example, you know, lesson on lesson horse competition programs, right? Where people don't have to buy a horse, like IEA, then, you know, that's kind of giving people the next step, right? And moving them a little bit closer. So there's creating the products, and then, you know, asking people to move up, you know, step by step, again, to mirror the romantic relationship. It's like somebody who's like, hey, look, I think we should, you know, they're having those conversations, right? Like those define the relationship conversations that everybody loves to have, but they're super important. Like, you know, I think it's time that we move in together. I think it's time, like, you should be doing that with your clients. Like, hey, look, I think it's time for you to take 2 lessons a week. I think it's time for you to join the Lesson Horse competition program, whether that's, you know, IEA, AEL, or you create something informal and you just take your lesson horses to local shows. You need to create the complete journey of products inside of your program, and not just be creating one and complaining that nobody's in it, right? So from there, you know, you're pretty close to horse ownership, and you've got that complete staircase, right? That complete staircase into horse ownership. And again, you're sustainable, right? So you're constantly creating your own horse owner clients, and you have a journey. Now, the next level horse business owner is going to own, you know, a business, right? They're going to be a shareholder of their own business. And I think that I really look at it like it's usually 3 sort of different services inside of it. So the first one is lesson on lesson horses, and this is critical to get this right. So I've spent a lot of time with my clients making sure that business is incredibly well done, and that, you know, eventually you might have a director in place that runs it. I'm not saying, so many people don't see the opportunity, right? Where I say, look, you have to offer that, and they're like, well, I don't want to do that, so I'm not going to do it, right? There's another option where you build out a real structure, and you build out a team, right? And you manage that team. You choose the lesson horses, you choose the arena, you choose the curriculum, you choose the instructors, you train the instructors, right? So you have an incredible impact on it, even though you're not the one that's necessarily going to teach every lesson, but you've designed the lesson plans, right? So that entity is critical in the business. It's where I focus on most of our time with our clients, is getting that perfected. The second one is horse owners, right? And they're obviously synergistic and they're related. And yes, you should be having horse owners contact you directly that already know their stuff, already have horses, already go into competitions, know who you are. That should be happening. But if that's the only thing you have going on in your business, then it's just too fragile for me, and it's too unpredictable, right? So we still have that, and the horse owners is almost like a separate business, right? Because we're offering, and, you know, on that side, that's where you're offering board, you know, generally speaking, you're offering, you know, lessons, and you're offering, you know, competition. You're hauling people to shows. You're charging day fees at the shows potentially, and you should, you know, and that's really a really fun part, I think, of the riding instructor's job. And so a lot of people are like, that's the part I'll do, right? We might outsource, we might hire a team to teach the lesson on lesson horses, but I personally will take them to the shows. Now, there's also the world too, where you also have a team that takes people to shows. Like, you're the owner and you hire a show team, and they take your clients to shows. So that's the second entity of your business. The third entity of your business is buying and selling horses. And again, it's a different strategy. I think that at least one stall of your barn, you should be buying and selling horses, and you should be really good at this, right? And we're just coming out with new trainings and a new book and a new course about how to do this really, really well. And again, this is critical that you learn how to create a process for buying and selling horses that can be executed largely by your team. So many riding instructors I see, they're the ones that are responding to every single message, right? Every single message they're responding to buy or sell a horse. Every single trial they're doing themselves. Every single vet, they're overseeing every aspect of it themselves. They have not learned how to delegate any of it, right? So we're going to show you how to delegate almost 100% of it and create a true process and get better results buying and selling horses through delegating a lot of it, right? Designing the system and then delegating the system. So those are the three different businesses, and the reason why it's important to have those three different, I almost consider them like three different businesses: buying and selling horses, horse owners, and lessons on lesson horses, to really have all three really, really well run. They're all synergistic, right? They're incredibly synergistic. I think that you should be buying and selling lesson horses, right? I think you should be buying and selling horses maybe for other people. I think you might have an investment horse in the right allocation, the right mixture, okay? I think it's kind of risky to rent out a barn and have all investment horses, right? Those people are not usually fun to be around because they're so stressed out. They have to sell a horse to pay their monthly bills. But, the horse business owner that has all three working synergistically together, they have one investment horse, but look, if it flops, they still pay their bills off their lessons. If it goes great, awesome. So I think that to be in business for 50 years, you got to have all three working synergistically. You got to delegate. You got to delegate, and you have to build a team, and that has to be built on a really sound financial plan, because ultimately, if your pricing isn't good enough and you don't have enough clients, then you can't afford a team. And then that's the real problem, right? That you don't have enough clients and your pricing's terrible. And so it shows up as kids these days don't want to work, right? But when we unpack it, those businesses don't have enough revenue to really get somebody good, right? So they are offering, next to nothing, and then they're surprised when they don't get quality hires. So that is my strategy on how to be in business for the next 50 years as a horse business. You want to have three different businesses. You really want to focus a lot of your time and energy on making sure that the front end of the business is really strong. Bringing in brand new people into the sport and retaining them. That's something that we really, really focus on, and getting them up through the levels. The whole horse industry should be thanking you if you're doing this right. You're bringing in new people who go on to buy horse trailers, go on to horse shows, go to, buy horses, buy insurance, buy equipment. The whole horse, it's the lifeblood of the whole sport. And it's the people that are going to help us take care of the approximate, 7 million horses that we have in this country, right? Bringing in a whole new generation of people that can help us to take care of them. So I hope you enjoyed this, and I will see you next time. Thank you.